You ever stumble into a story so wild you almost want to call it fake, but then the details start stacking up until you realize, nah, this is just life doing what it does best, serving up chaos and heart all at once. That's exactly what happened with Max, a dog most people barely noticed in Santa Lucia. Skin and bones, fur all matted, eyes that never begged for pity, just always looking, as if he was waiting for the world to give him one more reason not to trust it. And then came that night, a storm rolling over the old town, streets slick and shining, wind howling through alleys, and Max sniffing around for something, anything, to fill his empty belly. That's when he caught the faintest sound behind a fogged-up basement window. Not a bark, not a shout, just a whisper scraping out into the night. Is someone there? Now, most strays would bolt, and honestly, nobody would blame them. But Max, maybe he heard something familiar in that voice, something like fear and hope tangled up together. He pressed closer, nose to the glass, body tense. Inside, old Matthias Roas huddled in shadows, the shell of a man who'd once been the heartbeat of Santa Lucia. There was a time folks would gather just to hear his laugh, but time breaks even the strongest down, and, you know, family can hurt you worse than any stranger. Let me back up a sec. Matthias hadn't always been a ghost in his own house. He'd been strong, respected, until his health slipped and his daughter-in-law, Camila, started spinning stories, told the neighbors he was off in a fancy care home somewhere. But in truth, she'd locked him away and started selling the family land for a quick buck. And the wildest thing? No one noticed. Not a soul, except for a stray dog with nothing left to lose. After that night, Max started showing up outside the window again and again. No leash, no invitation, just this silent ritual. Sometimes he'd nudge over a crust of bread or half a bottle of water he found in the trash. One time, he even dragged over a battered pillbox, heart med some lady had dropped by the pharmacy. Like, come on, you can't make this stuff up. It's like fate chose the most unlikely messenger to keep Matthias alive. Day by day, Max became more than just a stray. He was hope. Hope with muddy paws and a mangy tail. Hope that the world hadn't forgotten Matthias completely. But you know how small towns work. Someone's always watching. And in Santa Lucia, it was Clara Yamada. She's the local vet, quick-witted, way too kind for her own good. Clara had seen Max doing his odd little circuits around town, always veering close to the Roa's place. One day, curiosity got the better of her, so she followed, kept her distance, didn't spook him. From the cover of some old trees, she watched as Max pushed a piece of bread through a rusted window grate, heard a voice from inside. "Thank you, my lion." She froze, because she knew that voice, Matthias himself, the man who'd once told her to never turn away a stray, animal, or human. And here he was, cast aside like yesterday's trashed. That's when the dominoes started falling. Clara teamed up with Melissa, the Roas family's old housekeeper. Together, they pieced the story together. Camila wasn't just offloading the estate, La Esperanza. She was scheming with her brother, Tomas, the town notary, faking documents and greasing palms to sell everything to Verisur. Some faceless agri-corp promising progress, but really just bulldozing history and covering it with chemicals and avocado trees. It was the sort of scam you'd expect in a movie, not real life. But sometimes, you get the allies you need, Clara, Melissa, and Max, who turned out to be a better messenger than any phone. With Max running small items and notes, they planted a hidden camera at the basement window, gathered evidence, and in a stroke of luck, found the Real title deed stuffed behind an old painting, with a clause saying the land could never be sold to industry. That was the game changer. Camila and Tomas caught on, maybe spooked by Max's sudden devotion, maybe just sensing the tide turning. They hatched a plan to ship Matthias off for good, way out in the sticks. What they didn't expect: the old escape tunnel beneath the house, a relic from when folks feared bandits more than betrayal. Max led the charge, guiding Matthias, frail but stubborn, through darkness and mud. Every step felt like a coin flip, but you know how word gets around. a friend of Camila's called the cops, who raided Clara's clinic, accusing her of theft. But by then, Matias was gone, thanks to Clara's cousin, Eduardo, a state prosecutor who'd never trusted Camila's crowd. They made it to Guanajuato, barely catching their breath before Camila sent a thug to finish what she'd started. Glass shattered, gunfire tore through the air, but Max, always one step ahead, knocked Clara out of the line of fire. Yeah, that happened. They all walked away, shaken but alive. After that, justice came down like a hammer. Eduardo's team laid out every forged paper, every dirty peso. Verisur pulled out, Camila and Tomas landed in cuffs, and La Esperanza was saved, at least for now. 3 weeks later, the town threw a party. Matias stood on his porch, steadier than he'd been in years. Daughter Co flown in from Japan. Finally some healing in the family. Down below, neighbors clinked glasses, music filling the night, and Max sprawled at Matias's feet, finally wearing a collar the villagers made for him. Hero of La Esperanza. A stray dog saved a whole town, if you can believe it. But here's the twist. Not everyone agreed what came next. Some said Camila deserved a second chance. Others whispered that Verisur's money would find a way back in. Matias just hugged Max and said, "You measure family by who shows up when the world gets dark." Makes you think, doesn't it? What would you do in a town where loyalty and greed are always circling each other? Who do you trust when things get rough? Drop your thoughts below. Do you think justice ever comes clean? Or is it always a little messy, just like life? I want to hear your take, your stories. And hey, if you believe small kindnesses can change everything, stick around for more, because every town's got a Max just waiting for his moment. You ever notice how after the storm, the air's got this strange edge, like the world got scrubbed clean, but everyone's just waiting for something to go wrong again? That's exactly the feeling in Santa Lucia after Matias stepped back into the sunlight. Max never more than a step behind him. For a moment, it was like the whole town held its breath, the fields alive, music drifting over La Esperanza again, neighbors dropping by with casseroles, kids laughing as Max chased them under the old fig trees. Even Co, Matias's daughter, stuck around, sleeves rolled up, mending fences like she'd never left for Japan. You know those snapshots in time where everything looks perfect? Yeah, this was one of them. But you and I both know, nothing good lasts untouched. It didn't take long for the old worries to creep back in. Quiet at first, whispers at the bakery, glances over fences. Folks wondered if Matias was truly calling the shots or just letting the people who'd saved him pull the strings. There was talk about the money Camila and Tomas had stashed, money that never turned up, money folks figured might still be floating around, waiting to poison the well all over again. Then came the rumors about Verisur, the corporation. Turns out, those folks never take no for an answer. One day, this sharp-dressed stranger rolled into town, Alejandro Parra, slick hair, city accent, not a speck of dirt on his shoes, the kind who can sell hope to the hopeless. He brought gifts, scholarships for kids, talk of new roads, even a shiny plaque for the town hall. Progress, he called it. And you know what? People started listening. They'd fought so long to keep La Esperanza, but the fight wore them out. Sometimes, progress starts to sound better than tradition, especially when your back's against the wall. Even Co, who'd come back for her father, started to waver. One night over dinner, she said softly, "Maybe just one field, Papa. Maybe it's time to move on." Matias didn't answer, just stared at his hands, old scars, thick with memory, like he was weighing every sacrifice ever made for that patch of earth. But here's where it gets messy, because the fight for land is never really about the dirt. It's about the stories people tell to survive. While the town buzzed with talk of selling, Melissa, the housekeeper who never missed a thing, was busy hunting for the truth. Turns out, she'd been piecing together bank records, tracing every peso Camila and Tomas had siphoned off. What she found blew the lid off everything. Verisur wasn't acting alone. There was a shell company, right in Santa Lucia, and guess who was listed as a silent partner? The mayor herself, Senora Vargas, the one who gave all those fiery speeches about justice, who led the marches to save the land. Talk about betrayal. Melissa brought the news to Clara and Co. And suddenly it wasn't just about saving the Roas farm, it was about saving the soul of the town. They knew Vargas was too powerful to take on alone, but sometimes the most unexpected allies step forward. Father Juan, the town priest, had always kept out of politics until that Sunday, when he stood up in church, voice shaking but clear, and laid it all out: the money trails, the names, the dates. Some folks gasped, some stormed out, but most just sat stunned, realizing the person they trusted most had sold them out from the inside. That afternoon was pure chaos. The mayor tried to shut it all down, calling Father Juan a liar. But the documents Melissa had dug up were solid as bedrock. Eduardo, the prosecutor, came in with a court order, and by sunset, Senora Vargas was out on her ear, her cronies scattering like roaches when the lights come on. You'd think it'd be a clean win, but nothing's that simple. Some neighbors accused Co and Matias of stirring up trouble, said Santa Lucia would starve without Veris's money. Others cheered, vowing to keep the land as it was, sweat and dirt and all. Through it all, Max never left Matias's side. Maybe he sensed the tension. Maybe dogs just know when the world's holding its breath. He'd watch every stranger that came up the drive, tail stiff, eyes sharp. Weeks passed, and slowly the town settled into a new kind of normal. Elections brought in fresh faces, young folks with big ideas, old-timers who remembered when hard work was the only currency that mattered. They threw another festival under the giant Saba trees: music, laughter, everyone welcome. Matias danced with Co, Clara and Melissa swapped stories at the long wooden table, and Max, of course, got his own plate: steak scraps and a piece of cake, kids shouting his name like he was a movie star. But in the hush after the music died, Matias found himself standing at the edge of his fields, looking out into the night. He knelt beside Max, rubbing the dog's ears, and whispered, "We did good, old boy. But you and I both know this place will always need someone watching out for it." Because here's the truth: greed never really leaves, it just waits for the next crack to sneak through. And memories, well, they fade faster than you want. So let me ask you, when progress and loyalty crash headfirst, how do you decide what's worth fighting for? Do you trust the neighbor promising quick fixes, or the old dog who's been there through every storm? Is a community built on shared struggle, or does every victory just plant the seeds for the next battle? Tell me what you think down below. What does justice look like where you're from? Do you believe any town can stay free of the shadows for long? And hey, if you've got a story like this, where a small act changed everything, I want to hear it. Sometimes, the voices you least expect carry the farthest. And if you're curious what happens next, well, every place has a Max, just waiting for their moment to show what loyalty really means.